Okay, continuing. For the New Testament, the committee has based its work on the most recent edition of the Greek New Testament, prepared by Interconfessional and International Committee and published by the United Bible Societies, 1966, 3rd edition, corrected 1983. Information concerning changes to be introduced into the critical apparatus of the forthcoming 4th edition was available to the committee. End of brackets. As in that edition, double brackets are used to enclose a few passages that are generally regarded to be later additions to the text, but which we have retained because of their evident in antiquity and their importance in the textual tradition. Only in very rare instances have we replaced the text or the punctuation of the Bible Society's edition by an alternative that seemed to us to be superior. Here and there in the footnotes, the phrase "other ancient authorities read" identifies alternative readings preserved by Greek manuscripts and early versions. In both testaments, alternative renderings of the text are indicated by the word "or." As for the style of English adopted for the present revision, among the mandates given to the committee in 1980 by the Division of Education and Ministry of the National Council of Churches of Christ, which now holds the copyright of the NRSV Bible, was the directive to continue in the tradition of the King James Bible, but to introduce such changes as are warranted on the basis of accuracy, clarity, euphony, and current English usage. Within the constraints set by the original text and the mandates of the division, the committee has followed the maxim, as literal as possible, as free as necessary. As a consequence, the New Revised Standard Version, NRSV, remains essentially a literal translation. Paraphrasic renderings have been adopted only sparingly and then chiefly to compensate for a deficiency in the English language, the lack of a common gender third-person singular pronoun. During the almost half a century since the publication of the RSV, many of the churches have become sensitive to the danger of linguistic sexism arising from the inherent bias of the English language towards the masculine gender, a bias that in the case of the Bible has often restricted or obscured the meaning of the original text. The mandates from the division specified that, in references to men and women, masculine-oriented language should be eliminated as far as this can be done without altering passages that reflect the historical situation of ancient patriarchal culture. As can be appreciated, more than once the committee found that several mandates stood in tension and even in conflict. The various concerned had to be balanced by case by case in order to provide a faithful and acceptable rendering without using contrived English. Only very occasionally has the pronoun he or him been retained in passages where the reference may have been to a woman as well as to a man, for example, in several legal texts as Leviticus and Deuteronomy. In such instances of formal legal language, the options of either putting the passage in the plural or of introducing additional nouns to avoid masculine pronouns in English seem to the committee to obscure the historic structure and literary character of the original. In the vast majority of cases, however, inclusiveness has been attained by simple rephrasing or by introducing plural forms when this does not distort the meaning of the passage. Of course, in narrative and in parable, no attempt was made to generalize the sex of individual persons. Another aspect of style will be detected by readers who compare the more stately English rendering of the Old Testament with the less formal rendering adopted for the New Testament. For example, the traditional distinction between shall and will in English has been retained in the Old Testament as appropriate in rendering a document that embodies what may be determined the classic form of Hebrew, while in the New Testament the abandonment of such distinctions in the usage of the future tense in English reflects the more colloquial nature of the Koine Greek used by most New Testament authors, except when they are quoting the Old Testament. Careful readers will notice that here and there in the Old Testament, the word Lord, or in certain cases God, is printed in capital letters. This represents the traditional manner of English versions of rendering the divine name. The Tetragrammaton, see the notes, Exodus 3:14 and 15, following the following the precedent of the ancient Greek and Latin translation. Following the precedent of the ancient Greek and Latin translators and the long-established practice of the reading of Hebrew scriptures in the synagogue, while it is almost, if not quite certain, that the name was originally pronounced Yahweh, this pronunciation was not indicated when the Masoretes added vowel sounds to the consonantal Hebrew text. To the four consonants YHWH of the name, which had come to be regarded as too sacred to be pronounced, they attached vowel signs indicating that in its place should be read the Hebrew word Adonai, meaning Lord, or Elohim, meaning God. Ancient Greek translators employed the word Kyrios, Lord, for the name. The Vulgate likewise used the Latin word Dominus, Lord. The form Jehovah is of late medieval origin. It is a combination of the consonants of the divine name and the vowels attached to it by the Masoretes, but belong to an entirely different word. Although the American Standard Version 1901 has used Jehovah to render the Tetragrammaton, the sound of Y being represented by J and the sound of W by V, as in Latin. For two reasons, the committees that produce the RSV and NRSV returned to the more familiar usage of the King James Version. 1. The word Jehovah does not actually represent any form of the name ever used in Hebrew, and 2. The use of any proper name for the one and only God as though there were other gods from whom the true God had to be distinguished began to be discontinued in Judaism before the Christian era, and is inappropriate for the universal faith of the Christian Church. I think I'm nearly there. Yep. It will be seen that in the Psalms and in other prayers addressed to God, the archaic second-person singular pronouns thee, thou, thine, and verb forms art, hast, hadst are no longer used. Although some readers may regret this change, it should be pointed out that in the original languages neither the Old Testament nor the New makes any linguistic distinction between addressing a human being and addressing the deity. Furthermore, in the tradition of the King James Version, one will not expect to find the use of capital letters for pronouns that refer to deity. Such capitalization is an unnecessary innovation that has only recently been introduced into a few English translations of the Bible. Finally, we have left to the discretion of the licensed publishers such matters as section headings, cross-references, and clues to the pronunciation of proper names. This new version seeks to preserve all that is best in the English Bible as it has been known and used throughout the years. It is intended for use in public reading and congregational worship, as well as in private study, instruction, and meditation. We have resisted the temptation to introduce terms and phrases that merely reflect current moods, and have tried to put the message of the scriptures in simple, enduring words and expressions that are worthy to stand in the great tradition of the King James Bible and its predecessors. In traditional Judaism and Christianity, the Bible has been more than a historical document to be preserved or a classic of literature to be cherished and admired. It is recognized as a unique record of God's dealings with people over the ages. The Old Testament sets forth the call of a special people to enter into a covenant relationship with God of justice and steadfast love, and to bring God's law to the nations. The New Testament records the life and work of Jesus Christ, the one in whom the Word became flesh, as well as describes the rise and spread of the early Christian church. The Bible carries its full message, not to those who regard it simply as a noble literary heritage of the past, or those or who wish to use it to enhance political purposes and advance otherwise desirable goals, but to all persons and communities who read it so that they may discern and understand what God is saying to them. That message must not be disguised in phrases that are no longer clear or hidden under words that have changed or lost their meaning. It must be presented in language that is direct and plain and meaningful to people today. It is the hope and prayer of the translators that this version of the Bible may continue to hold a large place in congregational life and to speak to all readers, young and old alike, helping them to understand and believe and respond to its message. For the committee, Bruce M. Metzger. Anyway, so, did that. Good Bible. I quite enjoy it, actually. I've been reading it, and I like it. It's a good bit of text. The text is good. It's really good. I like it. And it's very good translation. Another one of the very good translations. Thanks for listening, and I hope you absorbed all that, because it's always extremely interesting, informative, and it's good for all Christians to know about the Bible they're reading. Thanks for listening, and God bless.